My name is Rosie. I was 32 years old, and for the last decade of my life, I had poured my entire heart and soul into building my dream company from the ground up, BloomBerg Botanicals. It started as a simple, passionate idea in my tiny, cramped kitchen, with me carefully mixing essential oils and rare herbs late into the quiet night, but it had slowly and surely grown into something truly beautiful and successful. I was the undisputed heart and soul of it all, the creative genius and master formulator behind every single lotion, serum, and cream we sold. My husband, Kingston, handled all the finances and the complex business deals. He was the charismatic, charming public face everyone loved, the smooth talker who could effortlessly charm investors and clients with a flash of his perfect smile. We had just signed our biggest, most important deal ever with a major national store chain, a moment that should have been our greatest triumph and celebration. But during the entire party, Kingston seemed distant, distracted, and preoccupied, constantly checking his phone with a tense, worried look on his otherwise handsome face. His congratulations to me felt hollow and rehearsed, like he was just reciting lines from a script he did not believe in. I tried to convince myself he was just exhausted from the long, difficult negotiations, but a small, quiet, and persistent worry began to grow like a weed in the back of my mind, a seed of doubt I desperately tried to ignore and push away. A few days after our celebration, the lingering unease still gnawed at me, a constant low-level anxiety I could not shake. I was in our shared, messy home office, frantically looking for an old supplier invoice, when my fingers brushed against it. It was a folded, printed bank statement, clumsily hidden under a thick pile of other unimportant papers. My eyes quickly scanned the page, and my blood seemed to run cold in my veins. It clearly showed a very large amount of company money, almost $50,000, had been quietly transferred to a private bank account I had never seen or heard of before. The name printed on the account was a complete and total stranger's. My heart started pounding like a frantic, wild drum in my chest, a deafening rhythm of panic. That very night, I cautiously showed the damning paper to Kingston, my hands trembling slightly with fear and confusion. He did not even look worried or surprised. He just laughed a soft, condescending laugh that made my skin crawl. He told me I was being paranoid and silly, and that I should not worry my pretty little head about complicated financial things I could never possibly understand. "Just focus on your little potions, Rosie," he said, his voice dripping with a mockery that crushed my spirit. That specific belittling phrase, "little potions," echoed in my head for days afterward. A cold, heavy, immovable dread settled deep in the pit of my stomach. A sickening feeling that something was terribly, horribly wrong in my seemingly perfect world. The next morning, I walked into the bright, modern BloomBerg office, my stomach still tied in painful, anxious knots from the night before. Instead of the usual cheerful, bustling sounds of my dedicated team, the entire room was eerily silent, frozen, and completely still. 3 stern-faced, unsmiling men in expensive dark suits and 2 stern, uniformed police officers were waiting for me, standing stiffly right by my own cluttered desk. All of my loyal employees were staring intently at the floor, their faces pale and filled with a mixture of shock and pity, completely unable to look me directly in the eye. One of the suited men stepped forward and coldly introduced himself as a federal auditor. In a flat, emotionless voice, he stated they had what he called irrefutable and overwhelming evidence that I had been systematically and secretly stealing massive amounts of money from my own company for several years. They showed me expertly forged documents with my signature that looked terrifyingly, impossibly real. They showed complicated, fabricated digital trails that pointed directly and accusingly back to me. I was too utterly shocked and disbelieving to even cry or protest properly. I just kept shaking my head back and forth, weakly whispering, "No, this isn't right, this is a mistake." They firmly handcuffed me, the cold, hard metal biting sharply into my wrists, and publicly led me out of the very building I had lovingly built from nothing. The scorching shame and profound humiliation were a hot, unbearable fire on my cheeks as I passed the stunned, silent faces of the people I once proudly called my team and my friends. I spent the next several terrifying hours sitting alone in a cold, bare gray jail cell, shivering uncontrollably on a hard, unforgiving plastic bench. My mind was racing in frantic, panicked circles, completely unable to process the surreal, waking nightmare that was now my reality. This had to be some kind of a terrible, horrible mistake that would soon be cleared up. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Kingston came to see me, his footsteps echoing in the quiet hallway. He looked appropriately sad on the surface, but his eyes, the familiar eyes I had loved and trusted unconditionally for years, were completely empty and dead, like two dark, cold, lifeless stones. He told me in a low, disappointed voice that he was so deeply shocked and saddened by my reckless, criminal actions. He said he felt he had no choice but to stand by the company to save it from total ruin and to protect all our innocent employees' precious jobs. Then, without a single flicker of human emotion or remorse, he calmly slid a thick stack of official-looking papers across the cold, scarred metal table between us. I looked down, my vision blurring with tears. They were formal, finalized divorce papers. I felt all the air violently leave my lungs, a suffocating, crushing pressure building in my chest. The sheer, calculated, premeditated cruelty of his move was a unique, soul-destroying pain I had never ever felt before. This was not any kind of mistake or misunderstanding. This was a carefully laid, malicious plan from the very beginning. He had not just betrayed me. He had meticulously built a complex trap and then calmly, coldly pushed me straight into it, locking the door behind him. My overwhelmed, court-appointed lawyer was a kind but visibly exhausted and overworked man. He laid out my grim, limited, and hopeless legal options in his small, cluttered, and dimly lit office. He explained I could choose to fight the severe criminal charges against me, but a long, brutal, public, and vicious trial would inevitably destroy any last shred of personal and professional reputation I had left in this world. The fake, yet terrifyingly convincing evidence Kingston had skillfully created was simply too overwhelming for any jury to reasonably ignore. I felt completely trapped, hopeless, and utterly, profoundly broken in spirit. Just to make the terrifying, relentless nightmare finally end, I reluctantly agreed to a plea deal that went entirely against my own heart's desperate protest. I'd painfully pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of financial misconduct, my voice a mere whisper in the crowded courtroom. As part of the swift, unforgiving divorce that immediately followed, I legally lost everything. My beloved company, our beautiful, spacious house, our carefully accumulated shared savings, all of it was legally transferred to Kingston. The sensationalistic news headlines universally praised him as the noble savior of BloomBerg, the strong, tragically wronged husband. I was publicly painted as the greedy, selfish criminal wife who got what she deserved. It was a hollow, meaningless legal victory that left me with absolutely nothing but a permanent, very public stain on my name and a deep, soul-crushing feeling of fundamental injustice that haunted my every waking moment. When I was finally, officially released from the entire legal nightmare, I stepped out into the free world with no home to return to, no money in my pocket, and no reputation to protect. My only lifeline in the entire world was Maya, my fiercely loyal former assistant who had believed in me and my vision from the very first day. She had a wonderfully kind heart and a generous spirit, and she immediately let me crash on the small, somewhat lumpy, but welcoming couch in her tiny, cozy apartment. For the first 2 weeks of my freedom, I could barely find the strength to move or even speak. I spent my days and nights just blankly staring at the off-white, slightly cracked wall of her simple living room. Completely consumed by a grief so profound and all-encompassing, it felt like a debilitating physical sickness. I could not force myself to eat more than a few bites. I could not sleep for more than an hour at a time. The entire world now firmly believed I was a common thief. And in my very darkest, most isolated moments of despair, I had started to internalize that poisonous lie and believe it about myself too. I was a mere ghost, a hollow, empty shell of the vibrant, passionate, and wildly confident woman I used to be just a few short months ago. It truly felt like my entire future, my very identity, had been brutally stolen from me, leaving behind only a void of shame and regret. One quiet, gray afternoon, while I was finally mustering the strength to slowly sort through a single, sad cardboard box of my old personal things, Maya had kindly stored for me. My trembling fingers found it. Tucked securely inside an old, thick, dusty college chemistry textbook was a simple black, hardcover notebook with a worn spine. It was my secret, personal book of formulas, a precious relic from my early, hopeful days as a budding formulator. My hands shook violently as I carefully opened it, the familiar, comforting scent of aged paper and dried ink filling my senses. There, on the very last few precious pages, was my life's true unfinished work, a perfected formula I had code-named the Amar Elixir. It was a truly revolutionary, concentrated facial serum, far more advanced, potent, and effective than anything BloomBerg had ever manufactured or sold to the public. I had consciously never shared this ultimate creation with Kingston, instinctively deeming it too precious, powerful, and valuable to reveal until it was absolutely, perfectly flawless. Holding that humble notebook tightly against my chest, a powerful, defiant spark ignited deep within my soul. My all-consuming despair began to dramatically harden and transform, crystallizing into a cold, sharp, unyielding rock of pure, focused, and righteous rage. This simple notebook was not just a reminder of my past. It was the undeniable key to my entire future. It was my secret weapon, my salvation, and my only way out of the deep, dark abyss he had thrown me into. I knew with sudden, absolute clarity that I needed wise counsel from someone who was both brilliantly intelligent and unshakably tough, someone who would not sugarcoat the hard truth. I made my way across town to visit my old, formidable chemistry professor from university, the esteemed Dr. Constance Jones. She was long retired now, a sharp, perceptive woman in her 70s who had never wasted a single word in her entire life, and was famous for her blunt, no-nonsense advice. In her cozy, warm, and book-filled living room that smelled of old paper and herbal tea, I spilled the entire sordid, painful story, holding nothing back. She listened with intense focus, her intelligent, piercing eyes never once leaving my tear-streaked face. When I finally finished, emotionally drained, she leaned forward in her worn armchair, her expression fierce and determined. "They think you are down for the count, Rosie," she said, her voice firm, clear, and filled with a steely resolve. "So you will rise from the ashes, stronger than before. But this time, listen to me carefully. Do not build a simple, vulnerable house that can be easily knocked over by the next storm. You must build an impenetrable fortress that no one can ever breach or destroy again." Her powerful, resonant words instantly became my personal battle cry, my guiding mission statement for the difficult journey ahead. For the first time since my world collapsed, I could finally see a clear, defiant, and achievable path forward through the overwhelming darkness. To practically execute my daring plan for a comeback, I urgently needed two crucial things: a basic source of income and, more importantly, secret access to proper, professional lab equipment. I swallowed every last bit of my shattered pride and dignity and managed to get a miserable, low-paying job as a night cleaner at a large, impersonal industrial cosmetics lab on the other side of the city. It was physically hard, deeply humbling, and mentally exhausting work. I spent my nights silently scrubbing sticky floors and meticulously wiping down countless counters, while the well-dressed, respected scientists and technicians worked their regular daylight hours. But when the last person finally left and the building fell into a deep silence, I had the entire vast, sparkling, and empty laboratory all to myself, a secret kingdom after midnight. Using carefully measured, discarded raw materials and basic, unmonitored equipment I was sure they would never miss, I began the slow, meticulous process of refining and perfecting the Amar Elixir in the quiet, stolen hours. My hands, which had been shaking uncontrollably with grief and shock for weeks, were now miraculously steady, sure, and precise under the bright, sterile, humming fluorescent lab lights. For the first time since my very public arrest and downfall, I felt a small, fragile, but very real sense of purpose and control slowly returning to my fractured life, a tiny flame of hope in the overwhelming darkness. After a full, grueling month of secret, late-night, clandestine work, fueled by determination and cheap coffee, I had successfully produced 10 small, exquisitely beautiful glass bottles of a deep, radiant amber-colored serum, each one filled with my precious, life-changing elixir. I used my very first meager, hard-earned paycheck to personally buy the highest quality certified organic oils and simple yet elegant, minimalist packaging from a local supplier. The following Saturday morning, My heart pounding with a volatile mixture of sheer terror and desperate hope, I nervously set up a small, rickety folding table at a busy local farmer's market. My chosen battlefield. My hands were trembling once again, but this time from raw, nervous excitement and the fear of failure, not from the deep, paralyzing despair I had known for so long. I proudly displayed a plain white canvas banner that had just one single powerful word hand-painted on it in stark, black lettering: Aurora. A friendly, curious woman about my own age eventually stopped by my humble table, examining my wares with a thoughtful expression. She asked a few intelligent, probing questions about the ingredients, and, after delicately smelling a small sample, she decided to take a chance and bought one single bottle. I held my breath in nervous anticipation for the entire, agonizingly long week that followed, checking my phone constantly for a message that never came. The next Saturday, to my immense relief and joy, she came rushing back to my table, her face lit up with genuine, undeniable joy, and her skin visibly glowing with health and vitality. She excitedly grabbed my hands in hers and said, her voice filled with wonder, "This is an absolute miracle. What on earth is in this incredible potion?" That was the pivotal, life-altering moment. I truly, deeply knew in my bones that my Amar Elixir actually worked as intended. She was my first real believing and satisfied customer, the first brick in my new foundation. That wonderful, kind customer, I soon discovered through a quick online search, was actually a micro-influencer in the wellness space with a small but very loyal, engaged, and trusting following on several social media platforms. She posted a heartfelt, genuine, and incredibly detailed video review about my serum, showing a clear, honest, chronological before and after timeline of her skin's remarkable transformation over a 2-week period. The video did not just get a few polite likes and comments from her close friends and family. It exploded, going completely viral overnight, shared and reshared by thousands of inspired strangers across the country. Suddenly, my old, cracked, slow smartphone would not stop buzzing, dinging, and lighting up with a constant, overwhelming flood of notifications from my makeshift, hastily built online store. Hundreds of paid orders, along with countless questions and words of encouragement, poured in from all over the country, from big cities to small towns I had never even heard of. My little, lonely table at the local farmer's market had accidentally started a small wave of interest that was now quickly turning into an unstoppable, nationwide tsunami of demand and excitement. This was the real-world, tangible proof of concept I so desperately needed to validate my gamble. My secret formula was not just good, it was truly, undeniably, market-changing and revolutionary. People could see the incredible, visible results with their own eyes on their screens, and they desperately wanted to be a part of this new beauty movement, to experience the magic for themselves. The rapidly growing online buzz and industry chatter also managed to reach someone incredibly important from my complicated past, someone who knew the real, ugly truth about Kingston. Liam, who used to be the talented, visionary head of marketing at BloomBerg, managed to track down my private email address through an old, trusted mutual contact from our startup days. He wrote me a long, passionate, and beautifully articulated message, explaining that he had voluntarily quit his high-paying job in sheer disgust and protest shortly after Kingston's hostile takeover of the company was complete. He said he simply could not, in good conscience, continue to work for a man he personally knew to be a complete fraud, a liar, and a criminal at heart. He had always deeply respected my creative mind, my strong work ethic, and my unwavering integrity. The very moment he saw the Aurora serum starting to appear online and read the uniquely descriptive, passionate product descriptions, he knew instantly it was my distinctive, unparalleled genius at work. He believed fiercely, unshakably in my new brand's potential, and officially, enthusiastically offered his services to help me with professional, strategic marketing and sophisticated business planning, for real this time, with no hidden agendas. He gracefully became my first, true, trusted business partner and a loyal ally in my new venture. I was profoundly relieved to realize I was no longer fighting this lonely, daunting war alone in the shadows. I finally had a smart, capable, and trustworthy comrade standing firmly by my side, ready for the battles to come. With Liam's expert strategic help and his brilliantly creative mind, we jointly launched a sophisticated, emotionally compelling crowdfunding campaign on a major online platform. We carefully, deliberately crafted a powerful, moving narrative about a founder's inspiring comeback. A universal story of human resilience, redemption, and hard-won second chances. But we were strategically smart and cautious not to use any real names or directly point any accusing fingers at Kingston or his company. People from all walks of life, from all over the world, connected deeply with the raw, authentic emotion and the powerful, relatable underdog story we presented. They actively wanted to be a meaningful part of a positive dream and a supportive movement to help a wronged person succeed against all odds. The campaign did not just succeed in meeting its basic goal. It exploded far beyond our wildest, most optimistic expectations, capturing the public's imagination and generosity. We raised a staggering, unbelievable 10 times our initial, conservative funding goal in less than a month. It was more than enough serious, substantial capital to finally start a real, proper, professionally run and scalable company with a solid foundation. We were decisively not just a hopeful kitchen table operation anymore, playing at being a real business. We now had a dedicated army of loyal, vocal supporters, and, just as importantly, the significant financial firepower we needed to seriously compete with the established big players in the beauty industry, including BloomBerg itself. We officially, triumphantly launched Aurora as a full-fledged, professional, direct-to-consumer online brand with a beautiful, user-friendly website and a strong social media presence. Our product packaging was intentionally minimalist, clean, elegant, and sustainable, using fully recycled and compostable materials. A direct and purposeful visual contrast to BloomBerg's new, overly flashy, and wastefully over-designed look under Kingston's shallow, trend-chasing leadership. Almost immediately, major beauty bloggers, influential vloggers, and respected industry insiders started talking, writing, and posting about us with genuine curiosity and excitement. They were instantly fascinated and intrigued by this mysterious, seemingly overnight brand that came out of nowhere with a single, hyper-focused product that actually delivered miraculous, visible, and verifiable results that customers were raving about. The first deliberate, calculated shot in our quiet, strategic corporate war had been expertly fired directly across the bow of the mighty BloomBerg ship. I knew in my bones, with a cold certainty, that it was only a matter of time before Kingston himself would personally notice the growing threat and feel the ground begin to shift dangerously beneath his own expensive, polished shoes. The hunt was on, and this time I was the hunter. He noticed, all right, and his reaction was both swift and predictably aggressive. Kingston saw Aurora's rapid, impressive, and widely publicized rise, featured prominently in the major industry news outlets, and he instantly recognized my unique, distinctive style and specific technical phrasing in the detailed product descriptions and brand voice. He was reportedly furious and, I suspected, deeply secretly frightened of being exposed. His first, clumsy move was to have his high-priced legal team try to sue me into oblivion, baselessly claiming I had signed a strict, binding non-compete agreement when I was forcibly pushed out of BloomBerg. But the specific document his lawyer arrogantly presented to the judge was poorly, hastily, and amateurishly forged, just like the fake financial documents he had used to frame me years before. The experienced, no-nonsense judge saw right through the transparent deception immediately and threw the entire frivolous, malicious case out of court with a sharp reprimand for wasting the court's time. By suing me so publicly, aggressively, and without merit, Kingston did not look powerful, strategic, or in control as he had intended. Instead, he looked threatened, weak, desperate, and incredibly petty in front of the entire business community. He had foolishly shown his weak hand too early in the game, and now the entire industry was watching his every desperate, flailing move with keen, judgmental interest. The predator was suddenly looking like vulnerable prey. Then, something absolutely magical and completely unplanned happened. A moment of serendipity we could never have orchestrated or paid for with any amount of money. A hugely famous A-list movie star, someone renowned and admired worldwide for her flawless, ageless, and enviable skin, was spontaneously photographed by an alert paparazzo while leaving an exclusive high-end boutique. with a distinctive Aurora serum bottle clearly visible in her luxury shopping bag. The candid photo spread like a glorious, uncontrollable wildfire across the internet, picked up by every major entertainment and fashion blog almost instantly. In a high-profile, widely read magazine cover story interview published the following week, the celebrity was directly asked about the secrets behind her legendary, much-discussed skincare routine. She specifically named and effusively praised Aurora by name, calling it her holy grail secret weapon, and the only serum that truly consistently delivers on its incredible promises. Overnight, our beautifully designed website nearly crashed and buckled under the monumental, unprecedented surge in global traffic from every continent. Orders flooded in from every corner of the globe, from Tokyo to Paris to Sydney. I was no longer just the determined owner of a promising, niche startup. I was suddenly the CEO of an undeniable, headline-making global sensation and a beauty industry disruptor. I was now a direct, formidable, and widely recognized competitor to the faltering BloomBerg. The balance of power in our competitive industry had completely, dramatically, and undeniably shifted in my favor, and there was nothing Kingston could do to stop it. Just as Aurora's monumental success was reaching its stratospheric peak, I received a strange, anonymously sent, encrypted email from an unknown, untraceable address, the message appearing in my spam folder like a ghost. It was from Isabella, Kingston's new, much younger, and famously beautiful girlfriend, the one he was often seen lavishing with expensive gifts and extravagant vacations, all funded by BloomBerg's dwindling coffers. The tone of her secret message was nervous, deeply bitter, and full of simmering regret and anger. She confessed she was utterly tired of his controlling, manipulative ways and his endless stream of empty, broken promises about their future together. She had been closely watching the news and finally realized his stolen empire was irreversibly falling apart, and she now wanted to strategically save herself from the coming financial and social crash. In a cold exchange for my written, legally binding promise not to involve her personally in any of my future legal actions against Kingston, she attached a single, damning digital file to the email. It contained a treasure trove of internal, incriminating emails directly from Kingston's private, password-protected computer. They showed him, in his own cold, calculating, and unmistakable words, meticulously planning my entire framing, discussing in detail which fake offshore accounts to use, and how to best forge the financial documents to be most believable to auditors. It was the final, undeniable, ironclad, and absolutely damning proof of his long-running criminal conspiracy against me, his own wife. The final piece of the puzzle had just fallen perfectly into my hands. It was finally, definitively time to tell my whole, unvarnished, and painful truth to the entire world, to reclaim my narrative. I courageously agreed to a primetime, nationally televised interview with a respected, notoriously tough and fair journalist known for her hard-hitting investigations. I sat perfectly calm and composed in the sleek, modern chair under the bright, hot studio lights, my back straight, my voice steady and clear, my eyes filled with a hard-won peace. I told the entire shocking story from the very beginning. From building BloomBerg with boundless love and passion, to the heart-wrenching personal betrayal, the humiliating public arrest at my office, the devastating one-sided divorce, and finally my humble, determined against all odds comeback with Aurora born from ashes and anger. Then, at the dramatic, climactic moment of the interview, I revealed the shocking, undeniable emails from Isabella on the giant, high-definition screen behind me for millions of viewers at home to see and read for themselves. The seasoned journalist was visibly stunned into a rare, profound silence, her notes forgotten in her lap. The watching public saw the real, unmasked Kingston, not the charming, heroic corporate savior, but a cold, calculating, and utterly ruthless criminal who would destroy his own family for money and power. Overnight, public opinion turned violently, permanently, and universally against him, with social media erupting in a firestorm of outrage and support for me. I had finally, decisively taken back my story, my good name, and my personal power from the man who had stolen it all from me. The professional and personal fallout for Kingston and his crumbling company, BloomBerg, was instant, severe, merciless, and publicly televised. Every single major retail partner, including the very one we had triumphantly celebrated that fateful day. One after another, publicly announced they were immediately, permanently dropping all BloomBerg products from their shelves and online stores, citing loss of consumer confidence. No reputable business wanted their valuable brand to be associated with a company led by a proven liar, fraud, and heartless conman. Their sales evaporated into thin air overnight, crashing to virtually zero, their warehouses suddenly filled with worthless, unsellable inventory. The panicked, desperate board of directors at BloomBerg, terrified of the massive incoming shareholder lawsuits and the complete, total collapse of their now worthless stock value, held a frantic, emergency meeting behind closed doors. They voted unanimously and publicly to fire Kingston immediately for cause, citing gross misconduct, egregious fraud, and irreparable, catastrophic damage to the corporate brand. The glittering empire he had so greedily stolen from me, the company he had clearly valued over our marriage and my happiness, crumbled into worthless dust and ashes in a matter of days, right before his disbelieving eyes, a very public and deserved karma. Armed with the new, rock-solid and utterly damning evidence from Isabella, my new, fiercely brilliant and aggressive lawyer, Abigail Stone, helped me file a massive, multi-million-dollar civil lawsuit against Kingston for fraud, malicious prosecution, and intentional infliction of extreme emotional distress. The high-profile courtroom was constantly packed with reporters, television cameras, and curious onlookers every single day of the dramatic trial, the air thick with anticipation. Kingston was eventually forced to take the stand in his own defense, a moment the entire world was waiting for. The once charming, impeccably dressed, and confident businessman was gone, replaced by an unhinged, sweating, twitching, and visibly desperate man in a wrinkled suit. He was nervous, evasive, and full of a volatile, barely contained rage on the witness stand. He repeatedly tripped over his own complex web of lies and half-truths, and eventually told an obvious, easily disprovable untruth under solemn oath, a fatal mistake. He was found in contempt of court by the furious no-nonsense judge, his credibility utterly destroyed. He had decisively sealed his own fate with his own panic, arrogance, and towering ego on full display for the jury to see. It was a total, complete, and sweet legal and personal vindication for me, a moment of justice witnessed by the entire world, finally proving my innocence beyond any shadow of a doubt. The judge's final sweeping ruling was harsh, unambiguous, and delivered with a tone of clear, cold disgust for Kingston's despicable actions and his blatant perjury in her courtroom. Kingston was legally ordered by the court to pay me back every single dollar he had demonstrably stolen, plus millions more in substantial punitive damages for the intentional, profound, and lasting emotional distress and reputational harm he had so callously caused me. The court immediately began the complex process of seizing all his remaining personal assets: his flashy red sports car, his collection of expensive Swiss watches, his custom-made designer wardrobe, and his secret, hidden offshore bank accounts, to begin satisfying the monumental, life-altering financial judgment against him. He was left with absolutely nothing but massive, overwhelming, and soul-crushing debts to his own team of notoriously high-priced lawyers, who were now aggressively suing him for their unpaid legal fees. The financial guillotine had dropped decisively, its blades sharp and final. A form of long-delayed legal and financial justice had finally been served in a court of law, though I knew it could never truly fully give me back the peaceful years, the lost trust, and the shattered innocence he had so cruelly stolen from my life. About a peaceful year after the dramatic trial had conclusively ended, and the relentless public frenzy had finally died down, I found myself taking a long, solitary walk that led me past the old, now empty, decaying, and haunted BloomBerg headquarters, a place filled with so many ghosts. The large windows were dark, dusty, and completely lifeless, like dead eyes staring out at the world. A large, faded, and neglected for-lease sign was hanging crookedly on the heavy, locked, and grimy glass front door, a sad monument to failure and greed. I stood there on the quiet sidewalk for a long, reflective moment, expecting to feel a powerful surge of victorious satisfaction or gloating pride. Instead, I felt a strange, soft, and quiet peace settle over my heart, a final, gentle closing of a deeply painful and turbulent chapter of my life. The angry ghost of my old life, The haunting, painful memory of the naive, trusting woman who had been so brutally broken and betrayed in that very building was finally, mercifully laid to rest, her spirit freed. That part of my life was conclusively, irrevocably over, a book I could finally close forever. I felt no simmering anger, no burning hatred, and no lingering bitterness left in my heart, only a clean, quiet, hopeful emptiness that was now ready and waiting to be filled with new, joyful, positive, and better things, a blank canvas for my future. My company Aurora celebrated its massive, against all odds success and its incredible journey by grandly, triumphantly opening its first flagship, brick-and-mortar store on a famous, prestigious, and expensive avenue in the heart of New York City. A dream come true. The stunning store was a beautiful, bright, airy, and welcoming space, filled with the excited, happy chatter of loyal customers and the clean, fresh, uplifting botanical scent of my products, a sensory experience. The star-studded opening night gala was a dazzling, unforgettable triumph, a vibrant, joyful celebration of how incredibly far we had courageously come from that lonely, uncertain, and humble farmer's market table just a few short years ago. Aurora was now a globally recognized, beloved, and trusted household name, a powerful, inspiring symbol of resilience, quality, purity, and ethical business practices in an often shallow industry. I stood gracefully at the very center of the glittering event, the acknowledged, respected, and celebrated CEO of my own self-made multi-million-dollar global empire, surrounded by friends, supporters, and my dedicated team. I had visionarily designed, strategically built, and fiercely protected every single part of this beautiful success story myself, with my own brilliant mind, my own two determined hands, and my own unbreakable, resilient will to survive and thrive, a testament to the human spirit. I stood alone in my new, spacious, sun-drenched corner office on the top floor, high above the bustling, energetic, and never-sleeping city streets, the world at my feet. The breathtaking, panoramic view of the iconic, glittering skyline was especially magnificent as the sun began to set, dramatically painting the sky in brilliant, fiery shades of orange, pink, and deep purple, a masterpiece just for me. I thought deeply about my entire, incredible, roller coaster journey, from the very first time I nervously mixed my first batch of oils in my tiny kitchen to this very moment of undeniable, hard-won triumph and peace. I realized with a sudden, crystal-clear clarity that I had not just barely survived what Kingston did to me. I had been fundamentally forged, strengthened, and reborn in the scorching fire of that profound betrayal. The searing pain and profound humiliation had not, in the end, broken my spirit. Instead, they had burned away all my old self-doubt, fears, and insecurities, revealing a core of immense inner strength and resilience inside me that was as strong, brilliant, and unbreakable as polished, aerospace-grade titanium. I was no longer the helpless victim he had tried so hard to create and destroy. I was unbreakable, I was powerful, I was wise, and I was truly, completely free. My inherent worth was no longer tied to what company I owned or what assets I possessed, but to the formidable, compassionate, resilient, and unstoppable woman I had fought so hard to become, a warrior and a queen. If you are listening to my story right now, and you have ever been deeply hurt, betrayed, abandoned, or made to feel small, worthless, or powerless by someone you deeply loved and trusted, I want you to hear my voice clearly and hold my words close to your heart. Your pain is real, valid, and it matters. Your anger is fair, justified, and a natural human reaction to being profoundly wronged and disrespected. But you must not, under any circumstances, let those dark, heavy, poisonous feelings consume you from the inside out, eating away at your soul. You must learn to harness them, to use them as powerful, relentless fuel for your own incredible future comeback story, the one you are destined to write. They might try to bury you under a mountain of their vicious lies and deceit. They might steal everything you have in this material world. But they can never, ever steal your brilliant, unique mind, your God-given talent, your kind, generous heart, or the fierce, unquenchable divine fire that burns brightly in your soul, your true essence. Remember this always, in your darkest hours. Your comeback story will always be louder, more powerful, more inspiring, and more beautiful than their pathetic, small-minded setback. Let their betrayal be the potent fuel that feeds the powerful, unstoppable engine of your own future empire, whatever form that may take. Now go out there into the world, and with a steady heart, a clear mind, and unshakable courage, go build the beautiful, abundant, and joyful life you truly, deeply deserve. Your time is now.